If you're an outdoor enthusiast, such as a nature photographer, a bird watcher, a hunter, or anyone who simply wants to increase your enjoyment of the natural world by greatly improving your powers of visual perception, then this video is for you, as I'll be sharing with you 5 techniques for developing visual hyper-awareness. Now, this is another one of those videos that's going to be much longer than the usual 3 minutes or so, but I hope you don't mind. There's a big difference between simply having the power of vision and truly being able to see. Having well-trained eyes enables you to seek out objects, recognize minuscule details, and gather information that would otherwise remain totally unnoticed, as an untrained eye takes many things for granted and glances over vast amounts of information in a split second. Everything you see tells a story, which can lead to great discovery. Developing visual hyper-awareness is not just a matter of having good eyesight in general, though, as corrective lenses such as contacts or glasses can help with that. It's more a matter of learning to see things differently, to practice the powers of perception in a much more focused manner. This is a skill that's learned by professional photographers, hunters, military snipers, trackers, wilderness guides, and many others who depend on razor-sharp, incredibly discerning eyesight for optimal performance. For some, developing such eagle eyes is a natural, unconscious process, but for others, it's acquired through a conscious effort and regular practice. Either way, though, it's a skill that anyone can learn with time and effort. The following 5 techniques can be applied during your time out in nature, which will help progressively expand and focus your ability to see in a more disciplined and methodical manner. A major factor in retraining your eyes to be able to see more wildlife, as well as simply appreciating your surroundings more in general, is to slow down. Living in the high-speed, supersized world of our modern culture, we're greatly influenced, both consciously and subconsciously, to move fast and think big. This especially affects how we see things. Much of the media content that we're exposed to in our daily lives is extremely fast-paced. The next time you watch a movie or TV program, or even a commercial, notice how fast the images, scenes, and camera angles change. It's a rapid-fire, machine gun pace of stimuli. The producers are trying to jam as much visual information into our minds as fast as possible. But the long-term results of being exposed to such content is a dramatic decrease in one's attention span, which has a huge negative impact on one's ability to focus for long periods of time. That same mindset can carry over to when you spend time in nature. If you move through your surroundings in a fast, hurried, unfocused pace, you'll miss out on so many things. However, when you make it a point to move at a slow, purposeful, relaxed pace, or just sit quietly for long periods of time, you begin to notice the slightest, most hidden phenomenon, such as the pleasing, earthly scent of specific trees and plants, the sound of the dew dripping off the leaves in the morning breeze, the symphony of songbirds and other creatures that are present all around you. You begin to perceive the elusive movements of wildlife, such as the slightest twitch of an animal's ear, the flick of a tail, or a footstep. You start to notice the way the light hits the foliage and intensifies certain colors. You notice the intricate structure of rock formations and even the bark of the trees. The list goes on and on. When you make it a point to slow down, way down, your senses become genuinely hypersensitive. Sounds are not just heard, they're felt. They radiate through your entire body. Likewise, sights are not just seen, but they draw a response for further investigation and appreciation. As a culture that increasingly spends hours a day staring at tiny cell phone screens, it can be challenging to develop the wide-angle vision that's necessary for obtaining that hypersensitive level of seeing. Being able to broaden your field of vision and maintain that wide-angle view is a necessary skill, especially for first spotting wildlife from a distance. Now, it's a little difficult to explain the process, but I'll give it my best shot. So try this exercise. Look outside of a nearby window. What happened? Most likely, after a quick glance of the entire scene, your eyes began moving around and focusing in on particular objects, such as a tree across the street, a parked car, a person, or whatever else. When your eyes start to focus in on individual objects, they can easily miss out on small, otherwise unnoticed visual data that could very well be what you're more specifically looking for. This is especially the case with detecting the subtle movement of wildlife. For many animals, the first thing that alerts them to danger is movement, sometimes extremely slow, barely noticeable movement, like the blink of an eye, or a slight change in texture, color, or tonal contrast in the brush. One of the first steps in better being able to spot wildlife, both big and small, is to practice that exact same skill yourself. And the first step in doing so is learning to survey a scene thoroughly with wide-angle vision, which enables you to much more easily detect the subtle, otherwise unnoticed presence and movement of wildlife. Here's a quick lesson on how to practice. Go back to that window that you just looked out of, and now focus hard on not focusing on any one particular object. While in a calm, relaxed state, allow your field of vision to widen, almost as if trying to see through the scene that's before you. Give special attention to expanding and exercising your peripheral vision, as if trying to see out of the sides of your eye. Hold that wide-angle stare for as long as you can. It'll eventually start to feel more natural, and most especially, you'll start to notice those tiny, subtle characteristics and movements of everything in the scene, which naturally is your cue to then focus in for further examination. The more you practice this technique, the easier and the more productive it will get. After getting the hang of seeing the world through wide-angle vision, it's time to start practicing the other end of the visual spectrum, and that's what I refer to as microvision, which is focusing in as precisely and up close as possible to examine extremely small details. Going back to our example of looking out the window, after examining the scene with your wide-angle vision, say that you notice a flicker of movement or a tiny, out-of-place bit of color in a distant tree. With microvision, you now focus in on not just the tree more specifically, but you go as far as examining everything about the tree in great detail. The size of the trunk from top to bottom, the texture of the bark, every single limb, every single perceivable leaf or tiny twig on each and every limb, and so on and so forth. You methodically check out every single minute detail of that tree until you clearly identify what it was that initially caught your attention. Now, this can be done with the naked eye by simply getting closer. However, doing so very well may scare away any birds or animals that you're trying to locate. A much better option for this micro-examination is using a high-quality set of binoculars. Keep in mind that binoculars are not just for long-distance viewing applications, but they can be used at relatively close ranges with great effectiveness for discovering the fine details of things that you otherwise never would have seen or paid attention to. Whether you're using wide-angle vision or microvision, an important skill to practice in conjunction with either is to look for parts of animals. Quite often, wild animals will not be standing out in the open somewhere and just waiting for you to have a look at them. Most wildlife remains hidden much of the time, or at least stays close to cover. Animals that do inhabit wide-open terrain tend to blend in naturally by means of their coloration, and they also tend to position themselves in a way in which they can easily detect danger. In most cases, wild animals will see or smell you long before you ever know they're there. But no matter the case, either in thick cover or the wide-open plains, from relatively close distances or from very far away, and either with the naked eye or using binoculars, learning to look for and recognize parts of animals is vital to success. Work on developing a heightened awareness of shapes, colors, minuscule movements, textures, and contrasts that are even slightly out of place in a particular setting. Instead of looking for the whole animal, especially in areas of thick cover, again, focus in and look for parts of the animal, such as a distinct color or pattern, the shape of an ear, the flick of a tail, the flash of an antler tip, an eye, a nose, or other facial feature. Now, this is something that will naturally take practice, but in time, you'll be amazed how much faster and how much more wildlife you'll start seeing using this technique. As an example, I can look at a vast mountainside, and within just a few seconds, I can tell if there are any bald eagles present. Not by looking for the whole eagle, but rather by simply looking for a tiny white spot in a sea of brown, green, or other dominant colors. Here's a few examples. Now, this one may seem obvious, but one of the most important things to do while out and about looking for wildlife is to stay alert and keep your eyes open. If you use most of your time in the woods taking a nap, reading a book, or incessantly fiddling with your cell phone, you're not going to see much wildlife. While being immersed in the beauty of nature is certainly relaxing, you have to stay focused on the task at hand to be successful and consistently see those more elusive animals. And that means to stay awake, alert, intensely focused on your surroundings, constantly scanning the area, and again, watching for the most subtle movement or activity. You have to make it a point to keep distractions to an absolute minimum and to not let your guard down for even a second. So to quickly wrap things up, no matter if your eyes are young or old, in great shape, or needing a little extra help from corrective lenses, you can still greatly expand your visual powers of awareness by practicing these few simple techniques on a regular basis. Like anything else, the more you do it, the better you'll get. And before you know it, you'll have your own set of eagle eyes in no time. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to this channel and check out the 3 Minutes Outdoors website at 3minutesoutdoors.com. And finally, if you'd like to support this channel, click on the link in the video description below to find out more.